Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of my No Man's Sky realistic building series. First thing we'll need to do is expand our kitchen by 2 half panels. This will give us extra room to fit all the cool details I have planned for this build. We'll be using techniques that we learned in episode 1 to expand the room, and then techniques we learned from episode 2 to expand the cabinets and countertops. Next, we're going to use the locker piece as the front half of our fridge. We'll be using this box temporarily as a height guide so we can place the back of the fridge and know exactly where it lands. Let's go ahead and delete this locker for now so we have space to place the back of the fridge. I find the locker piece doesn't create enough depth to the fridge alone, so we're going to use the tall cabinet to create that. Using that box as a height guide, we'll be able to line up both front and back pieces perfectly. We can go ahead and delete this box as it's no longer needed. Now we can go ahead and place that locker over top of the tall cabinets to create the full effect of the fridge. It can be tricky to scale objects to real-life sizes in No Man's Sky, but I feel like this is pretty close. If you're like me, your fridge at home isn't completely bare, so we're going to use some posters to add some flair to it. Go ahead and choose your favorite designs for this step. First thing you'll notice is that the game wants to automatically place these posters behind the objects. This issue can be solved by placing a poster first and then building on top of it with additional posters. Placing a large-scale poster as your base will give you more surface area to build on top of. So now we can go ahead and add some decorations to our fridge. Now we're going to use the vintage tumbler and shrink it down as far as it'll go, and that'll create the illusion of fridge magnets. Now our fridge is looking super good. Let's use the techniques we learned in episode 2 to fill these upper cabinets out. I'd say that's looking pretty good so far. Now we're ready to start adding some appliances and detail to the countertops. I love using these small planters that were added in the orbital update, although for some reason the color glitches in and out sometimes, and I'm not quite sure why. We're going to use the wash trough to make ourselves a little dish drying rack by the sink. Now let's add a couple of dishes and cups to our drying rack. Now, let's utilize the resizing glitch that we learned how to use in episode 2. We're going to shrink down a wooden floor panel to make ourselves a cutting board for the countertop. And we'll use the resizing glitch again to shrink down a nutrient processor for our counter as well. Next, we're going to use the wall fans to form the shape of an espresso machine. I absolutely love how this turned out, and I hope you do too. Next, we're going to use the reinforced capsule to make the group heads on our espresso machine. We'll then use the gas canisters to form the base of our espresso basket. Next, we're going to use the vintage teapot to form the handles of our espresso baskets, and for the steam wand on the side. Because you can shrink it down so small, I find the vintage tumbler makes great buttons. And we'll finish off our espresso machine by adding a couple of wall fans as drip trays. Now that's looking ready to make us some great coffee. Using the resizing glitch again, we're going to shrink down some half-sized alloy floor panels, and they're going to form the bases of our Induction cooktop. We're going to use the number 8 decal and some creative layering to form the inset burners. We're going to use the number 0 decal on its side, overlapped a couple of times to fill in the last remaining gaps. We do this because the number 8 decal will not shrink down small enough to fill in the remaining gaps. Now, let's go ahead and use our trusty wall fans to make a control console on the front of the stove. I wanted to give the stove a little bit of a futuristic flair, so I'm going to use the holographic display as part of the control console. Remember how I said that the vintage tumbler makes great buttons and dials? We're going to use them here for part of the stove. Now that we have our stove, we need to build some ventilation for it. We're going to shrink down a pipe and use that as our vent hood. Now we'll use a flat panel and a fan to make the rest of our ventilation system. Now we've got a nice little cooktop for our kitchen. Let's go ahead and use the ornate stool to create a seating area for this part of the counter. Because the decals wrap around objects, the round ones make really great seat cushions. I'm going to use the Amino Hub decal for this one, but you can use any one that you prefer. Once you've selected your preferred decal, go ahead and fill out all the seat covers the same way. We're going to rotate this ventilated crate to make a wine rack for this part of the countertop. Let's use a combination of gas canisters and vintage cups to make a couple of bottles for our wine rack. Next, we're going to make a knife block, first starting with 2 molded crates. We're going to use a few shovels to represent knives in our knife block. Let's go ahead and use a couple of vintage teapots to act as steak knives for the lower half. Next, we're going to go ahead and fill out the ceiling section for our kitchen addition. An interesting thing you can do with the metal building pieces that isn't explained in the game is that you can change the texture of the building parts. This is done by first going to a piece where you can edit the texture and selecting the texture that you'd like. Now, if you go back into the metal building pieces, you'll notice that the texture that you previously selected will now show up on them. This is what I used for all the rust textures in my derelict research facility base build. This kitchen looks amazing, and all the details we added makes it really feel like home. This video ended up running longer than expected, so we're going to save the living room decorations for next episode. I had a lot of fun coming up with these kitchen details. I hope you enjoy them as much as I did creating them. That's all for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.